Hello, hello. Welcome to hell. Welcome to hell. My personal hell, where we read my old fanfics from ye olden days when I was just a innocent child, not knowing what I did with the power I held, which was apparently just a connection to the internet and the ability to post things to fanfic.net. Last week, we read Resident Evil fanfiction, which I wrote in my freshman year of high school, and it was challenging. We were challenged, but I think ultimately we decided it wasn't executed perfectly, but it had a solid premise, it had some solid ideas, and it had some decent writing. This is not that. This was written at some point in my middle school years. I actually remember the first day I sat down to write this. It was before DMC4, probably around the time of somewhere about 2 or 3. I played these games from the moment they came out, was obsessed with Devil May Cry, really into them. Not surprising that I wrote fanfic about them, specifically what is very obviously self-insert original character fanfiction. I was in middle school, but the character I created is a college student, and it's very clear from the beginning, I don't really know how college or having a job works in this story, because neither really makes sense in this story. Hello, Lob Sylvith. Hello, Dagger. We'll give it a few minutes to see if anybody else pops in before we get started. The character is called Christine. She is a college student, and the premise is basically, I don't know, she gets a job at a pizza place because Dante eats pizza, I guess. And so the idea was, I think her friend was trying to hook them up or something. And there you go. You did one and done. I was a master of writing romance fiction, obviously. This is a premise for the ages. Oh, God. We're all going to be challenged today. This is worse than last week. Hey, handsome Ratch. Oh, God, this is going to be horrible. And it's definitely not as well written, because I was in middle school. I was probably in 6th grade, I think. I can actually double check when this was. I should double check, because this fic, unlike the last one, is actually on the internet somewhere. I won't tell you where, because that would make it too easy for you. But this fic is findable on the internet. The other one I never posted. This one I did. And when did I post this? Let's see. It was published 2008. Oh boy, 2008, the year of our Lord. So that's what? 11 years ago? So, okay, I would have probably been 14, 15, so I would have been more like 8 years old, or not 8 years old, 8th grade. Am I going to do another charity stream? Yes, I'm going to be doing one once a month. This stuff is going to be the smaller, just like 1 hour fanfic things are for goofing off and just raising general money for the channel. The charity stuff will be way longer, have a lot more stuff going on. The next one's going to be the 29th of this month, starting at noon EST. We're going to be playing Fatal Frame. I'll be posting all that on social media much more often as we get closer to the date. But I am going to do that again, for sure. Let's see. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Make sure there's enough people to enjoy my suffering. God, this is... I actually wrote 12 chapters of this, I think. I got pretty in-depth into this story, unlike the other one. We're only reading about 3 today, because that's enough. Oh, thank you, handsome Ratch. Oh, man, I guess I should stop. Oh, oops. I spoiled my images. Why do you do that when I'm not on... Let me fix that. I don't know why it does that. Like, there we go. I have hotkeys set up, and apparently I must have hit them, but I didn't have the browser open, so why would it... I'm gonna have to figure out those differently. Hello, Odd Molly. Welcome to my pain and suffering. But, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with this travesty. Here we go. My first self-insert original character fanfiction featuring me and Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Here we go. Absolutely enraged, fists clenched and heart racing. Christine slammed the classroom door behind her and stomped out. She was completely furious. Violently shoving the buttons on her cell phone, Christine frowned and pushed it up against her ear. "Hello?" "Madison!" The girl sighed, letting go of a little frustration. The girl on the other end of the line recognized the voice and gasped happily. "Hey, girl, are you okay?" Brushing a hand through her hair, Christine tried to calm herself. "I really need to talk to you. Can we meet for lunch?" "Of course, I'll be right there. Meet me at the pizza place by your house." Christine nodded and thanked her friend before shutting the phone and glaring over her shoulder. With thundering footsteps, the angry woman stormed out of the building and into the afternoon light. Hey, Jeff and everyone else. Luke, hello. Thank you for joining my suffering. Welcome to the Fanfic Friday fundraising for the channel by embarrassing me. Hey, what's going on? You're really red in the face. Yeah. Sitting in the back corner of their favorite pizza place, young Christine Moss sat with her close friend, Madison Miller. Both were college students at different universities in the city, one studying clothing design, the other literature. Damn it, it's my fucking professor. Christine sighed, wiping sweat from her brow. What'd he do? Letting her head hang, Christine closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. He was being an ass again. He's been an ass ever since I told him his darling Sarah Temple cheated on her written essay, named me in class, and used my paper as an example of what not to do. I told him to take his essays and shove them up his ass. Then I stormed out, and somehow was not expelled from college. Groaning, Christine let her head sink to the table. I don't think I can stomach college anymore. Surprised, Madison gasped and grasped her friend's shoulders. No way! Don't throw your future away because of that jerk. So I'll throw away my dignity instead. Moaning, Christine leaned back away from Madison. I don't even know what I want to do anymore. Frustrated, Madison crossed her arms and tried another approach. Come on, you've wanted to write stories forever, and you know a college degree won't help you get to writing, but it will help you get a job. I just want to write. I hate work. Sighing, Christine turned away from her friend, standing to fill her empty drink with soda. Determined, Madison stomped after her. Hey, you called me here. Don't walk away. Actually, that sentence reads, Hey, you call me here. Don't walk away. Good job. Madison, though a good bit shorter than her tall friend, took firm hold of her wrist and forced her to turn around. You're a lazy ass. That's why you want to quit. You just won't finish anything. Rolling her eyes, Christine sighed and nodded. So I never finish anything. What's it worth anyway? Jeez, it's not like college has done anything for me. Madison huffed and crossed her arms. Superiority complex, that's what you have. She frowned. You think your writing is better than the professor's. Almost as if that conclusion should have been obvious, Christine turned to her, surprised. Of course! He's an ass who's never thought any deeper than his silly teenage love stories. Says the girl who keeps a bunch of romance novels in her cabinet. Madison quirked an eyebrow. The rage Christine had faded, and a blush covered her cheeks. Hey, that was research. Uh-huh. Now flustered and unsure, the taller girl huffed and stomped over to the soda machine, shoved her cup under the dispenser, and pushed the drink button. I really love to use explicitly very specific verbs. She didn't hear the door open over the sound of her own thoughts, being very deep in musing. Madison saw the door open and gaped at the man who walked in, utterly surprised and shamelessly staring at him with a girly smile. She pulled on her friend's sleeve. Christine! Oh, Christine! She pulled harder, turning the girl. Her hand slipped and tipped her soda over, spilling it on her sleeve. Gawking, Christine hurried to clean it. Dang it, what was that for? She cried, brushing her arms off with napkins. You're the one who's a klutz, now stop it and look. She hissed, forcing her friend to turn her head towards the cash register. As soon as she rested her eyes on the man at the cash register, she understood why her friend had wanted her to look so badly. Whatever napkin she'd been holding in her hand, she let go of. "All right, I want two with everything on it, got it?" A tall, rugged man was leaning against the counter, waiting for his order. Silver hair glistened in the light over his beautiful pale skin, his rippled muscles hidden beneath black leather. He was dangerous, and twice as much for how good he looked. Christine could hardly take her eyes off him, and Madison giggled at the sight of him. Quietly, nervously, Christine sidestepped until she was out of his sight and in the hallway leading to the bathroom. Madison had yet to notice, but when she went to hold her friend's wrist, she grasped air. Glancing around, she frowned and hurried after her shy friend. "Christy, what are you doing?" Gawking at her friend, Madison flicked her hand back towards the man. "Hello, hottie at 12 o'clock. "Actually, that's 9 o'clock for me," Christine commented. Madison rolled her eyes. With a sigh, Christine shook her head and backed away. "Come on, you don't think I'd have a chance, do you?" Stomping up towards her friend, Madison took firm hold of her friend's ear, dragging her towards the bathroom. Shocked, Christine fought back, but for such a small girl, Madison was very strong. Throwing her through the doorway. Just wham! Madison slammed the door shut. No one can just close doors in this. Okay. I'll take a moment to say thank you for joining, Odd Molly, and thank you for the support, Handsome Ratch. God, this is so much. Okay. Madison slammed the door shut, took hold of Christine's shoulders, and made her look at the mirror by the bathroom sinks. Christine was almost 5'8", 133 pounds, and though tall, very thin. Her pale skin was dotted with freckles on her face, and scars on her elbows, knees, and lower legs from her adventurous childhood. Dark hair framed her hazel eyes down to her shoulders and unkempt. She was not unattractive, though perhaps not as much as of an eyeful as her buxom blonde friend. "Tell me, what's not to like?" Madison prodded, putting a hand on her hip. "It's not that," Christine sighed and brushed hair out of her face. They do that quite a lot. "Like you said, I never finish anything. No matter how much I like someone, I'm not driven to go out of my way to get them. It's just a fleeting dream, really. Besides, that guy was a total stranger." Placing a hand under her chin, Madison thought on the subject hard. Then light seemed to flood her eyes, and she snapped her fingers. She just had laser beams shoot out of her eyes. God, that's it. It's brilliant. Surprised, Christine looked up. "What? I know how to get your drive back, to get your writing better, how to make you really want to live again, how to get you off your ass." We're just having an inspirational speech in this bathroom. Madison cheered heartily. Yes, I get it. Now what is it?" Unsure of what Madison was thinking, the brunette was sure she wasn't going to like it. Proudly sauntering over to her friend, Madison placed her hands on Christine's shoulders and looked deep into her eyes. I need a second. This is all so much. I see some more folks have jumped in the chat. Hello. Welcome to hell. That should be what this is called. All right, here we go. Madison placed her hands on Christine's shoulders and looked deep into her eyes. "You need a boyfriend." Storming from the bathroom, Christine frowned deeply and hurried away. "Christy, come on, listen to me." At this comment from Madison, Christine spun around to respond, but was unable to. Before she could, she felt her back hit something behind her, and she stumbled, falling towards the floor. Whoa! Ah! Before she fell to the floor, two strong arms grasped her waist. Shocked by the sudden warmth around her, Christine felt her cheeks flush, quickly glancing over her shoulder to her savior. "Hey, you okay, babe?" The silver-haired man helped Christine to her feet, giving her a warm, suggestive smile. Shocked and wide-eyed, Christine backed away as a reflex, trying to gain control over again. Yes, I'm fine. Backing towards her friend, Christine hung her head, hiding behind her hair. Madison elbowed her from behind, almost as if she knew what the other girl was thinking. Christine straightened up and spoke again. Thank you, she mumbled, not looking him in the eye. The man smirked a little, a twinkle in his eye. Welcome, babe. As he walked by, the man let his hand pass through Christine's hair, ruffling it a little, before he moved on and walked into the bathroom behind them with his pizzas? No, I guess I didn't say he had the pizzas, so okay. For a moment, the two girls stared in shock, flustered and surprised. Christine slowly raised her hands to adjust her hair. Giggling madly, Madison jumped for joy. Oh, Christy, this is fate. His hand probably had germs. Probably gross or something. Oh, come on. Madison quickly dragged her back into the other room and sat her down. This is great, the girl giggled and leaned close to her friend. Listen, I've got a great plan. Oh, joy. Still fixing her hair, Christine obliged and leaned towards her friend. Madison glanced around before whispering to Christine. This place has a job opening for pizza delivery. Christine stared dumbly. You're kidding me. Oh, come on, just listen. Madison leapt up, grabbed Christine's arm, and pulled her towards the wanted poster. Not the we're hiring poster, the wanted poster. Oh, man. Look, it's really good pay. Christine rolled her eyes. It's a pizza joint. Ignoring the brunette, Madison pulled her up to the counter where a young man stood. Tell her what you told me, she insisted, finally letting go of Christine's shoulder. The man was a little flustered, but he spoke. We have a job for a delivery person, and it really does pay well, almost $4,000 a month. Eyes wide, Christine gawked at the man. $4,000 a month? Bull! There's a reason, Madison whispered, giggling. She motioned for the man to continue. That man you saw, he's Dante, the killer for hire. Christine turned a little pale at this, but Madison hardly noticed. He's our highest paying customer. Usually he doesn't come in like he did today. Usually it's delivered. This is important how? Christine wondered. He's why the delivery people are paid so much. There's only one delivery person, and they get paid a lot because... She left the dramatic pause and let the man finish, biting her lip anticipatorily. He gulped. The last two delivery people died. Christine blanched, even more pale than before. No way. She backed away from the counter slowly. Killed by Dante's enemies in the crossfire of his battles, or because they were in his part of town. All by mistake, but since Dante's so important, the company still hires one delivery person for him. Take it or leave it. A woman behind them finished the story as she cleaned tables. Christine looked ready to faint. First you want me to go back to college, now you want me to work here as a delivery girl to hell. She gawked, heart racing. This is your chance. There's no way that flirt will let a girl like you die. You can see him again, Madison giggled. And why would I want to? Frowning, trying to return her heartbeat to normal, Christine shook her head and leaned against the counter. Just as she spoke these words, the silver-haired enigma, Dante, came out of the hallway. His pizzas were waiting for him at the counter. He quickly strode over and paid for his meal. Christine felt her heart racing again for a different reason. Color rushed to her face as he sauntered by, glancing over at them. Be careful out there. Clumsy little thing like you might get hurt, he joked with a wink. Realizing the man was making fun of her, Christine's cheeks turned brick red, and the veins on her face pulsed. I'm not clumsy, she shouted impulsively, furious. Dante's laughter could be heard even as he left, hopping onto his motorcycle with a roar, driving off. Did he roar? Did he roar? Okay. Frustrated, Christine ran out after him, calling for him. Hey, I said I'm not clumsy. She impulsively removed her shoe and tossed it after him, missing by a mile. The man disappeared into the night, the engine roaring out in the darkness. Chest heaving, heart beating. It doesn't say, it just says her heart's beating, which is good, I guess, because she's alive. her emotions ranging wildly. Ranging? She has a wide range of emotions? Christine stood in the dark, unsure of what she was doing. Calming herself, she sighed, brushing her forehead off. Madison walked out of the store, a smug grin on her face. She'd paid the bill, and in her arms had both her backpack and Christine's. With a smug smile, she passed the bag to her. That's why, she insisted, sauntering off to get her friend's shoe. Gawking as she walked off, Christine felt her heart race again. She saw the silver-haired beauty in her mind's eye. He was so brash, so annoying, so gorgeous, so unlike anyone she'd met or dated. This Dante was different. Dante, she whispered. She liked the name on her tongue. It made her face flush. Madison sighed contently, shaking her head as she retrieved her friend's shoe. Here, silly, you want this back? She asked aloud, but when she looked, there was no one there. Christine rushed back into the restaurant and slammed her hands on the counter, a very determined look on her face. I'll take the job. Oh boy. Oh man. This is so much, and we've only just begun. We've only just begun. God, this is just... Okay, well. Yeah, alright, here we go. Oh, no, it's missing a picture, isn't it? Oh, I forgot to jump to that one when she was getting mad at Dante. Apologies. But that's her getting mad at Dante. And here we go. Here's the next part. The museum was empty at this time of night, but for guards and security cameras. Those sort of things couldn't stop him, not with his powers. Like a jaguar silently treading through the forest, he sauntered through the halls in search of his prey. It wasn't long before he found it. The stone, hidden beneath a glass case, pulsating under the pressure of his aura. It shone a deep red, was smaller than his palm, and rested beneath a description of its creator. Coveting it, desiring it, he felt the power course through him as he reached for it. Slowly, he reached towards it. Suddenly, the red color flashed and a sharp pain rushed through his hand and up his arm. Gasping, he fell back, clutching the injured flesh weakly. He got the message. He couldn't have it, not yet. In his present state, no demon could touch it. Only a human could take it from the museum. Thoughts clicked in his mind. He'd have to find her. Only she would do. It was poetic justice of an amazing scale. Slowly, laughter filled the halls of the museum as his plan fell into place. He would have the stone. The human would take it for him. He need only wait. Okay, well, this next part, that's the end of chapter 1. We're gonna probably go through about 3 chapters. I don't know if I should read this next part. It's not the story. You know how in the old days we all used to write author's notes at the end of the chapters? You know, and they were all goofy and I have an author's note here. You want to read a message from my 14-year-old self? Oh, God. I guess I have to. This is the authoress speaking. At your service. I've wanted to experiment with romance stories for a while and decided to use Dante for the experiment. If you are a reader of my other stories, I have not forgotten about them. I have an upcoming break, and I will be writing during that time. I really hope to have another chapter of blank story and my blank story. This chapter was just a taste, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Please come again. About to fall asleep in her chair, the writer. Oh, God. Okay. Oh, boy. All right. Chapter 2. The night would have been really peaceful and quiet if he hadn't been driving home on a motorcycle. But then peace wasn't a word Dante would use to describe anything in his life. Not his job, his ride, his house, Not himself, most definitely. There was no peace. Most especially none in his mind. He felt like he was off his game today, acting like a stupid little schoolboy, but for some reason he saw the girl out of the corner of his eyes, and sure, he thought she was cute. But thinking a girl is hot is different from waiting until they come out of the bathroom to talk to them, and he didn't even talk to her. He stood there and she bumped into him. Dante groaned and shook his head. Why was he acting like a dork? He'd never lost his cool around a girl before, so he had to get it back. That's why he made sure to stroll by her and make a saucy exit. But even after laughing and driving off into the night, the girl's protests left far behind him. Something still didn't feel right. The girl was not that hot. Compared to her friend, she was flat as a board. Frowning, Dante drove faster. Nothing distracts better than the wind winding like stream around your body. That and going home and popping one of Enzo's DVDs into the DVD player, followed by a nice cold shower. Plenty of chicks in the sea, he grinned, revving the motor and speeding home, his yummy, tasty pizzas in hand. Oh, God. Okay. When Christine walked into her house at 11 that night, she collapsed on the sofa and laid there for a second. Her mind was reeling with thoughts about school, her new job, and the man she'd seen. Dante. Christine groaned and shook her head. She was not going to let a silly, full-of-himself man distract her. She took the job just to prove a point to Madison. Yeah, that was it. She was proving a point, and she didn't need Dante. Sighing, Christine sat up when the phone rang, reaching over to pick it up. Hello? Christy, is that you? Grinning, Christine nodded. Okay, but this is the time of cell phones, right? Who asks, is that you, when a person answers a cell phone? Okay. Hey, Dad. I got a call from Maddie. She mentioned something about me having a son-in-law soon. Christine groaned and hung her head. Madison is obsessed with making me date this guy we met today. She's a freak. I was wondering if you were still the little girl I knew, always the one to sock the guy in the face before saying so much as hello to him. Apparently, she's very violent. Giving a laugh, Christine swung her legs up onto the sofa. Yeah, still the same, Dad. But you know, it would be nice to know my girl's being taken care of. I don't need some foolish guy to take care of me. I can handle my own. She frowned. With a pizza delivery job? Grimacing, Christine swore to harm Madison the next time they met. She told you that? She practically blackmailed me into it. Laughing, her father responded, That's not a bad job for having while you attend school. You don't need a big full-time job yet. Christine grimaced worse. At least Madison hadn't told her father she didn't want to attend school anymore. Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, Barty called. Christine sat up, eyes wide. Grampy? Who calls their grandfather Grampy? Why did I decide she calls her grandfather Grampy? He wanted to talk to you, so I gave him your new cell phone number. He said he'd call sometime this weekend. Honey, you wouldn't know anything about Mom and Josh arguing with him, would you? Confused, Christine said no. I think they're on good terms, she trailed off. I mentioned your stepfather, and Barty seemed to shut up. I think they're mad at him for sponsoring my new business. Look, I don't want to know about the family drama. I just want to sleep. Shaking her head, Christine rolled her eyes. All right, honey. I love you. Sighing, Christine let a small, serene smile appear on her lips. Love you, Dad. Good night. Christine hung up and groaned, falling back onto the sofa, wondering what Grandpa wants. Dropping the phone on the floor, Christine pulled the pillow under her head and made herself comfortable. To attend or not to attend, school was at the forefront of her mind, a huge problem, something to dread. With all her heart, she wanted to leave it behind forever, but she knew that it would hurt those she loved. And it was true, a degree would help her get a job. It would get her more pay. But what did she care about money? Nothing really interested her, but she hadn't said that to her father. Last time she'd mentioned her lack of interest in everything, her father had blamed her mother. She mentioned her boredom with everyday life to her mother, and her mom blamed her dad. She tried talking to Josh about it, and as the stepfather, he tried not to blame anyone. He was actually the most help, telling her to continue school, trying to find a job that really piqued her interest. She loved writing, but she hated working. Any job requiring those things together was a bust. She liked physical work, but that got boring eventually. The best thing to do was save up money, attend school, and write in her spare time. That looked like her only option. Christine forced the subject of school to the back of her mind and wondered about her grandfather. He was rich and lived far off in the country. What did he want with her? It was rare he called her up, unless he'd heard she needed support or if it was her birthday. When he did call, they'd talk for hours. Smiling, Christine anticipated a call from her grandfather, Bartholomew. After these thoughts dissipated, school came back to her mind. A pile of schoolwork sat on her desk. Sighing, Christine approached the work. Damn it. Groaning, she sat down and picked up a pen, looking through what she needed to finish. It was all easy, but a load of work. The only thing to do was get started. God, okay. I have to also mention something. You know, you always had to put the little, page breaks, because originally fanfic.net didn't have a way to put a page break between sections, so to be able to tell that it was a new section, you had to create your own. And back in middle school, we created a lot of our own ingenious, great ways, like different symbols and things to create the symbol. Mine was -0 love me, hate me, -0 Oh, God. It took her at least 2 hours, but Christine finally finished her homework, and some work not due yet. It felt nice to have it all done. She had to admit, as much as school was boring, it gave her something to do when her professor wasn't being an ass. It was mostly a nice experience until she let her pride get involved. Sighing, the girl looked at her watch. It was 1:34 in the morning, and her stomach was growling. But just as she was standing to get something to eat, the phone rang again. "Grandpa?" She grinned, hoping it was her grandfather. Practically hopping over to the phone, Christine grabbed it and placed it on her ear. "Hello?" Her grin fell a bit. Christine listened, confused. "Already? Geez, okay, I'll be right there." Christine hung up the phone, rolled her eyes, and slipped her shoes on. This Dante really must be a pig. Oh, bye, Jeff. Thanks for joining me in my hell. And welcome other folks who have joined us. Okay, do we have another picture that I need to go to? Yes. By the time you could say Dante is a pig, Christine was dressed in her uniform, 3 pizzas in hand, jumping into a cab. "I look like such a freak," she groaned, trying to straighten the horribly wrinkled shirt. She gave up, put the pizzas on the seat next to her, and drove off into the night. She was good with directions. She didn't get lost, but Christine had to take a second look when glancing around for the place. The giant Devil May Cry sign was a giveaway, but it looked like such a dump on the outside. Slowing to a stop, Christine shut the car off and picked up the pizza. But before she stepped out, she looked out her window, and that was a good thing. As she did, blood splattered on her windshield, and she shrieked in surprise. Hand over her heart, she set the pizzas down and stood out of the car, ducking when something that looked like a head zoomed over her. A horrible roar shook the area, and Christine reached for her mace. But before she could, the sound was silenced. For a moment, Christine stood there, silently. When footsteps approached, she prepared herself. Pulling her mace out of her back pocket, she moved towards the car and placed the door between herself and her enemy, and a form came out of the fog. "Hey, are you—" "Ah!" Before the man could blink, Christine leaned over and sprayed him, and then jumped back in her car, shut the door, and turned the ignition. In a flash, she was backing up, heading out, the sounds of whoever she'd sprayed drowned out by her engine. Before she could drive off, a hand grabbed the car door, which hadn't shut quite correctly. "Damn it," Christine cursed, pulling back out. Another hand seized her can and tossed it away, and somehow the hand holding her door was strong enough to keep the car from moving. "Come on," Christine roared, and suddenly her car door came off and she was gone, driving into the night. She kept driving until she was almost to the pizza place, and then she drove off the road, stood out of her car, and screamed. Collapsing to her knees, Christine pulled out her phone, shivering as she did. When the pizza place answered, she screamed again, really, really loudly, and then she hung up. Damn it, she cursed, tossing her phone into the grass. Her first job, and she finished it with blood on her car, a missing door, no mace, and she didn't even deliver the pizzas. What were those things that had been screaming, and who in the world killed them? And that person who'd come at her. Come on, think logically, Christine tried to calm herself as she wiped sweat from her forehead. She'd been told Dante was some sort of killer for hire, right? Maybe he'd killed those monsters. So he really was a monster hunter. She'd always thought there was more to the world than it seemed. But monsters? She'd crawled over to her phone, dialing Madison's number. Hello? I hate you, Christine growled. Madison, half asleep, moaned in response. What happened this time? Christine explained what had happened, how her car had gotten wrecked. She left out the part where she screamed at her phone. When she was done, Christine sat back in the car and waited for a response. You idiot, Madison giggled. The person you sprayed was Dante. He gets in battles all the time, but I suppose your nerves made you think they were monsters. They were probably like ninjas or mobsters or something. Oh yes, monsters are illogical, but ninja mob members, that makes sense. Christine moaned, realizing her mistake. Oh gosh, now I have to go give him his pizza. Remember, 30 minutes or it's free. With one last giggle, Madison hung up. Oh boy, hey surfing. Have a good lunch. I'm having a great one. When Christine's beaten, lacking car door, blood-soaked pizza delivery cab pulled up in front of Devil May Cry again, a figure was sitting on the front steps. Silver hair drenched in sweat, his coat ripped and on the floor next to him. Dante had a wet cloth in his hands, trying to rub his eyes clean. Christine frowned deeply, feeling nervous, her heartbeat quickening. How could she have been so stupid? Sighing, Christine picked up the pizzas and walked up to Dante. Here are your pizzas, she muttered, walking up with them in hand. They're free, and I'm sorry about the eyes. Unsure of what to do, Christine stood there, watching Dante vigorously rub his eyes clean. Then he threw the cloth behind him and looked up at her, and Christine felt her heart skip a beat when those green eyes? Are his eyes green? Those green eyes looked at her. You know, next time someone's worried about you, try not to spray them in the eyes, Dante told her, rubbing his eyes again. Taken back by his words, Christine frowned and stepped back when Dante reached for his food. Excuse me, but how do you expect me to react when I see blood everywhere and some stranger comes at me? Next time, just don't come at me like that. Dante was surprised by Christine's sudden response, and he crossed his arms and frowned. Oh, so I should announce myself before approaching Her Majesty. An eyebrow disappeared beneath his bangs. Well, yeah, Christine nodded. I mean, I'm not royalty, but it's scary when all of a sudden somebody's head flies over your car, and then somebody else is coming out at you from the fog. Oh, so I'm scary, Dante smirked, hands on his hips. Just your face, Christine retorted. That is such a middle school insult, God! Oh, Dante's smirk dropped. For a moment, the two stood silently across from each other, Dante's tall form intimidating the smaller girl. Fidgeting, Christine finally sighed and held the pizza out for him. I really am sorry, she muttered, eyes glancing at the ground. Dante, surprised at her modest look, took the meal from her. You know, you could really apologize by coming in and having dinner with me, Dante grinned, nodding his head towards the house. Christine's jaw dropped. What? I just apologized, and I'm not letting you hold this against me just to get me to do what you want, she told him, hands on her hips. And I'm not even hungry. I already ate. So she was starving. He didn't know that. At least not until her stomach rumbled. Flushing, Christine crossed her arms. Victorious, Dante sauntered up to the door and held it open for her. Christine stood her ground. You haven't even apologized. You scared me to death and ripped off my car door. Christine swung her arms back toward the cab. Dante rolled his eyes, as if tired of the details. Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Now are you hungry? Dante nodded towards the house again. Christine frowned. Every cell in her body wanted to go back to her doorless cab and drive home. She had school in the morning, and it was almost 2 a.m., but somehow her feet were carrying her indoors, and before she knew it, Dante walked in behind her, and the door slammed shut. Oh, God. So did you always have that pizza job, or did you sign up just for me? Christine flushed red at Dante's words, and thought mentally that the man didn't know just how close he was to the truth, but she couldn't let him know that. I needed a job while going to school, and pizza seemed to be simple enough. Dante grinned and set the pizzas on the counter, lifting the box to grab a slice. So what happened to those two you got earlier? Christine asked. Mouthful of food, Dante muttered demons, but it sounded like blimens to Christine. He repeated the word when he finished his bite. Demons? Christine asked incredulously. Those things you saw me fight earlier. Demons straight from hell. Dante grinned. He motioned to the box in front of him. Pizza? Okay, wait a minute. Shaking her head, Christine frowned. You're telling me those things were demons, like Bible demons from hell. That's them. Dante brought a can of beer out of the fridge. Want some? Christine stared at him. I think I may need some. Dante grabbed a can and handed to her. Not even going to ask if I'm 21? Christine asked, popping the lid. Are you? He wondered, finishing his first slice. No, she said, taking a large swig of the drink. Then she picked up a piece of pizza, taking a bite of it. Once she downed that, she turned back to Dante with a sickened face. How do you drink that stuff? She continued eating the pizza, hoping to rid herself of the vile taste. And that's why beer is for grown-ups, Dante taunted her. Christine made a face. Dante pulled over 2 stools for them. So I told you what I do. You said you go to school? College, Christine told him. Not a specific college, just a college. I'm majoring in literature. But I tell you, it's one of the worst experiences of my life, she told him. Really? I was going to quit after my English professor used me as an example for the 100th time, but I didn't. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Sighing, Christine grabbed another slice. Is this really all you eat? She wondered. I like strawberry sundaes, too. That and pizza, or even on pizza. Dante grinned at the thought, but Christine shook her head. Ice cream and pizza. You really are a little kid. How are you in such good condition? She wondered, setting the pizza down. Do you have anything to drink other than this? Christine stood with the beer in hand. Soda in the fridge, Dante commented, and Christine walked over to it. Don't call me a little kid when you can't stomach alcohol. Grinning, Dante finished his third slice and turned to look at Christine over his shoulder. So, you like my condition, huh? Christine, pulling a soda out of the fridge to dry, spat out what she'd been drinking, because of course she did. What makes you say that, other than the fact it's true? You said yourself I'm in good condition, Dante smirked, standing up to get another drink. He rounded around Christine, who turned to argue. I said I was surprised you were when all you eat is junk food. I mean, if you can kill demons. Christine trailed off, grabbing another piece of pizza and leaning against the counter. Geez, you sure think you're right all the time, don't you? Dante laughed. Only when I'm right, Christine told him, though a small smile came to her lips. Dante smiled and didn't sit back down, just stood by the counter like Christine was. What in the world possessed you to kill demons? Christine wondered. Somebody's got to, Dante told her, opening his beer. I suppose it's more than that, but I shouldn't impose, since I don't know you that well, Christine murmured. Giving her a weird look, Dante shrugged. Keep bringing me pizza, you'll learn there's not much to know, Dante smirked. I doubt that, Christine smirked. Everyone's just smirking. Dante picked up another slice, and she grimaced. Dear Lord, how can you eat that much? I'm getting sick just looking at you. Hey, that's below the belt. With one big bite, Dante tore his 5th piece in half. I don't look that bad, and you know it. And so do you from the sounds of it, jerk, Christine muttered. Dante just grinned. Ha! I got you to admit it. That's a start. What? I didn't admit to anything. You're delirious. Christine shook her head. A start to what? She wondered. Finishing the slice in his hand, Dante looked to Christine and winked. The start of a beautiful relationship. I'm just the pizza delivery girl. Shrugging her shoulders, Christine took the empty box and threw it away. You make it sound like pizza's not important. It's not. It's unhealthy. Feeling full and sleepy, Christine shook her head at Dante and walked towards the door. Thanks for the food, but I've got to go. I've got school in the morning. Hey, is that... Gawking, Christine turned around to look at Dante's flat-screen TV, and the video game system attached to it, not to mention the game sitting next to it. Nothing has a name. Nothing is specified. Brand new, she whispered quietly. Dante, arms crossed, stood next to her with a smirk. Wanna play? So began a beautiful relationship, however strange it was. God, I clearly have no idea what romance is. At this point in my life, I mean, I'm 14, never been in a relationship. And I mean, at 14, who has been in a really true relationship for real? Like, God, Dante is such a smarmy piece of shit. I mean, it's not too far off from how flirty Dante is in the games, but In the games, he's charming. I don't know how to write that, clearly. I'm just them snarking at each other the whole time. Ugh, and smirking. A lot of smirking. Mm. And just so little specification. I go to a college. I like playing video games. Just, okay. All right, that's the end of chapter 2, and we are on to chapter 3. Needless to say, Christine was late to school the next day. She fell asleep on Dante's sofa and awoke to find his red coat on her. A normal woman might find the gesture endearing and romantic. Christine tossed it off and ran to the bathroom, about to toss her dinner from the smell of it. Dead demons and sweat were all over it. Dude, Dante, take a bath, Christine complained between dry heaves. I don't know how taking a bath's gonna help the jacket, but okay. By the time she got to school, first period was over. College! First period! That's definitely a thing college has. So the woman just slipped into the crowd and moved on to her second, her favorite, not class. Once she survived another period with the professor from hell, not to mention how Sarah Temple kept throwing looks over all the males in the vicinity, and they were certainly throwing back. What does that mean? What does this mean? I don't know. Apparently, I've just invented this character named Sarah Temple, who I think might be having an affair with the professor, and also is just throwing looks at all the males in the vicinity. I don't know what any of this means. Okay. After classes were over and the world started getting darker, Christine drove away with her blood-covered, door-lacking... I guess she never cleaned her car? With a sour feeling in her stomach. You're way behind on deliveries. You've got 2 uptown and 1 near the docks. What the hell? The manager cut off seeing the car. Dante was all Christine said, and that was all it took. It didn't matter to her. By the time she'd changed into her uniform and went outside, a new car was waiting for her. Delivering pizza, Christine decided, was not her favorite job. She was beginning to wonder why she'd taken it. Dante was just a thorn in her side, and an arrogant one at that. And all the other customers were either pissed off, paying in singles, I don't know why that's bad, or asleep when she got to the door. Plus, due to her late arrival at work, most of the pizzas were late. Overall, Christine spent almost $100 paying for late pizza, which did not put her in a good mood. I don't think that's how that works. I really don't think that is how that works. None of this. I have no idea how jobs or college work or dating. Nothing. None of this works this way. At least she smiled. No, I think that's supposed to be at last, but I wrote, at least she smiled when she got home. She'd have no homework to do. Okay, no, maybe that is at least. This is a weird sentence. She could wait a while before working on her other work that was not yet due. She would instead work on her novel. Oh, man. Hello, everyone joining us. I don't know why you are. This part... okay, so it's all been questionable up till now, but this part, it's clear I'm really trying, like, I can see where my eventual writing talent, I have a little talent, I can see where it has the roots of it, but in the beginning, this part is so rough. I know what I'm trying to do here, but it's badly done, so just brace yourselves. There wasn't a time in Christine's life that she could remember. Okay, wait. There wasn't a time in Christine's life that she could remember where she wasn't telling stories. From the first moment she could speak, the woman was a storyteller. Not the kind of stories she'd get into trouble for. The girl had feared her mother enough to always tell the truth. Instead, she would daydream often about all sorts of things. A vivid memory in the woman's mind was a time during the winter many years back when a young Christine had looked out the window. Oh, I forgot to show you that one, too. I should really put in the story next time when the pictures are. That'll remind me. But anyway, that's her delivering pizza, I suppose. Here we go. White puffs of marshmallow had been floating down out of the sky. Enthralled and astonished, the 5-year-old had leapt out of bed and ran outside in her pajamas. The marshmallows were cold on her skin. They tasted like water. As the rest of her household slept, Christine had wandered through the marshmallow world. The trees became tall licorices that when licked tasted rough and old. The dirt was chocolate that smelled of nature. Skin cold and frozen, the girl had spent an hour alone in her candy world before her mother, outraged and scared out of her mind, found her. She'd gotten a good talking to, but Christine never forgot the adventure. She'd been adventuring ever since in all sorts of places. There was a time when the landing of a staircase could be a floating aisle in the middle of nowhere. People could walk up and down the stairs past little Christine and her island and ignore them both, but the girl would stay with the landing so it would have a friend. As she grew older, her stories became less outlandish and more fantasy, stories of elves and goblins. Writing became her favorite way of storytelling, followed closely by photography and video games. And her project, her novel, was something she slaved over for years. Closing the door behind her when she got home, Christine immediately dropped everything at the door, just dropped it all, and ripped off her work clothes then and there. A big black t-shirt was lying across the back of her sofa. She grabbed it and pulled it on, ran over to her computer. I guess all she's wearing is a baggy shirt. With a flick of her wrist, she pulled up Microsoft Word, opened the file, and looked at her work of art. I love to just come home and just look at my work of art. Pride and joy flowed through her very veins and warmed her. All the anger and frustration of the day were long forgotten. The writing was all that mattered. Christine's novel was an adventurous love story, something she'd seen in a dream many years earlier. A young woman, a wanderer with no true bearing in life, befriends a man with many enemies. It was a story of star-crossed love, forbidden love, and the writer herself wasn't sure if it had a happy ending or not. The dream she'd had hadn't been that elaborate. The last bit she'd been writing had been the drawing room scene. In Christine's mind, she could see the elaborate costumes, the old Victorian room, and the grand piano in the corner. She wasn't sure what time period her story was in, either an alternate universe of some sort or the past itself. There was a lot about her story she didn't know. Instead of questioning, she just let it free and let it fall where it may. In the drawing room scene, as she dubbed it, the main character, Christiana, would meet the main male character. Christine hadn't named the man yet, and the female hadn't purposefully been named something so close to Christine's name. It had been Madison's idea. The woman had said the name sounded regal and beautiful, like the character. Nothing like me, Christine muttered inside her head. She shook the thought aside. At the computer, writing, she wasn't allowed bad thoughts. Christiana was feeling angry, uptight, and was overall in a bad mood, which fit how Christine had felt when she'd walked in. Christiana was a member of the gentry, not royalty, but a line of rich businessmen. But she had a secret, a half-brother born of her father's maid. He was only 12 and being of impure blood, not allowed to live with the gentry. But Christiana, who loved him more than anyone, took care of him, his mother and siblings secretly. That was until the boy was wrongly accused of being a thief and was forced into slavery. Christiana had tried to save him and was unable. So she did what she thought was best. She snuck into the mansion he'd been forced to work for and freed him. Her mistake? Getting caught. The drawing room scene was the scene where the master of the mansion arrived to Christiana to speak about her crime. I guess the love interest is a slave master? Maybe I meant indentured I didn't know anything. Neither of them knew it would change their lives. The scene would end with Christiana taking her brother's place at the mansion. This took a turn. A trick Christine was going to use to force both main characters to meet again and again until they fell irrevocably in love. Madison had been thrilled with the idea, but also laughed at the irony. You're one of the most unromantic people I know, she had pointed out, but this romance looks really romantic. How? The part Madison liked was the reason behind the forbidden love. Oh, I see. The reason was because Christiana was human gentry and the male main character was a demon royal, like the traditional romance novels with dark or vampiric males. Christine's male lead was a creature of darkness. She wasn't sure why she made him this way. It was something from the dream, more than likely. Something in his eyes. It was ethereal, but it felt right. Christiana fell in love with someone not human. What a big heart, Christine thought with a sputtering laugh, or maybe a foolish one. Who would be suicidal enough to love a demon? So, in the middle of reading this, I remembered some of the plot I had building in my head. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of, like, reincarnation or something going on. I know there's a lot of, like, backstory that I vaguely half remember. I know her family is, like, the mafia or something. Like, her grandpa is definitely, like, a mafioso. I didn't know anything about the mafia either, so prepare for a lot of glancing over that stuff. But there's some kind of history where her family has connections to demons or something. There was some kind of Romeo and Juliet thing going on with demons and humans, and it led to her parents breaking up or something, and they're in the mafia. And also there's some sort of, like, history or backstory. I don't know. There's so much going on here. Yeah, there's a lot happening. And there's going to be, I remember, I don't know if I ever got to the point of writing it, but I remember there was going to be a twist where she realized Dante was a demon and was, like, really upset by it because, I don't know, she knows what demons are now and now she doesn't like them, but I don't know. Okay. So we're gonna keep going. Oh, well, we're a little early for that one, actually. No, we're not. We'll go ahead. It was 2:00 in the morning when Christine's cell phone rang. She'd just finished writing and had taken a shower. Apparently this girl never sleeps. And was about to hit the sack when it did. A little hope shot through her, thinking it was her grandfather, but it wasn't. It was the pizza place. Dante had just called in for a late deep dish. Scowling, the woman didn't bother putting on her uniform, just slapped her hat on and was out the door. She didn't care if they said anything. She was asleep on her feet. Plus, she was a little peeved about her writing. She still didn't know what to name the male. It was hard to write about someone who didn't have a name. What was she going to do? Give him a nickname and fix it later? Side note. That is something I've done in fiction before. I had a story where I didn't know what I was going to name the guy. I just knew I wanted it to start with the letter R, and autocorrect, I think, chose the word raisin. So I was like, okay, I'll just leave that in and fix it later. And then I forgot, and I gave it to my friend to read, and the character's name was Raisin from then on. Anyway, back to story. Sighing, the woman concentrated on driving. Part of her was afraid she'd fall asleep and have an accident. Her father had done that once, and the idea of it happening to her did not appeal to Christine. What is with that detail? Luckily, she'd picked up the pizzas. They didn't notice the lack of uniform. They didn't notice you weren't in your... Okay. And made it to Dante's without nodding out. But she wasn't sure she'd make it back. She thought about sleeping in the car and decided that was not smart. Dante answered the door without a shirt, with a towel around his neck. Okay. Even half asleep, Christine was very turned on by muscular, half-naked Dante, but she'd never admit it. Good, you showered, she muttered, holding the pizzas up. Dante gave her a look. What's that supposed to mean? It means your jacket smelled like shit and it needs washing. I'm sure you did, too. He frowned. Gee, glad my sacrifice was appreciated. You had a bed, Christine pointed out, and covering me in your sweat was not a sacrifice. It should be a crime. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I'd forgotten who I was dealing with. Dante smirked, taking the pizzas and handing her money. Make sure you don't forget again, Christine returned, counting the money. She turned to go down and stumbled down the step, catching herself with the railing. Whoa, you okay? Dante was standing next to her in the blink of an eye. Fine, just tired, she muttered, walking past him. See you when you call. Dante watched her walk for a moment. He watched her stand by the car door, trying to put the keys in the keyhole. Eyes half closed, she stood there half a minute just fidgeting with them, trying to shove them in, and was scratching the door. Rolling his eyes, the man stepped down, took hold of her hand, and inserted the keys. Christine opened the door. Thanks. Before she could step in, Dante picked the delivery hat off her head, threw it in the car, and shut the door. Then he took the keys from her. Hey, Christine complained, waking up a little bit. Those are mine. What kind of man would I be if I let a beautiful woman drive away in a daze? Dante, standing at the top of the stairs, turned and looked at her. You should feel lucky. This'll be your second night over, and I haven't even seduced you yet. Yet? Christine cocked an eyebrow. She moved up the stairs, snatching the keys and elbowed him in the gut. Sorry, buddy, but yet is not the phrase. Dante, kneeling over, smirked through his cringe. Playing hard to get. Hardly. The woman walked over, collapsed on the sofa, and fell asleep almost immediately. Dante hadn't had time to make a comeback before she was out. Really must have been tired, the man thought, taking the pieces in. He already had one in his hands, about to devour it. As he ate, he looked around the room, picked up his red jacket, and was about to throw it over the girl when he suddenly made a face. He brought it closer to his nose and sniffed it, then cringed horribly. Damn, she's right. Dante tossed the jacket away. As he walked off to grab a blanket, he couldn't help but think, when isn't she right? Oh, yeah, I clearly do not know. Like, I'm trying to write a character that's, like, suave and romantic, but being 14, it's not at all. Like, it's not meant to be bad, but he does come off as a little bit of a creep. Ugh. But I think it just comes from me not knowing what's romantic. And, you know, from TV telling us that is romantic. Psh. Okay. This takes another turn. Going to another chapter. Marilyn Young waited until her husband was asleep to take a shower. She liked crying in the shower better because it felt like someone was crying with her. Usually she wasn't so depressed she would cry, but it was that time of year again. The anniversary of the worst day of her life. Her first wedding. Her first wedding had been a last-minute thing. A pity decision. Something she'd been forced into, and something she'd resigned herself to. For many years, out of love for her daughter, Marilyn had tried to make it work. But unmanaged hatred and searing pain had torn her heart apart, and her old husband had been a daily reminder of it. A divorce was imminent. Marilyn hadn't expected to love ever again. She couldn't, really. Love had been ripped from her heart. But still, she cared. She had come to care for Josh. Josh had come to her in a time of her life when Marilyn could have died and not cared. And though she could never love him, and though he knew it, he still had courted her. She had been completely against marriage, but it had been inevitable. For some reason? Of course, it had enraged her daughter, Christine. She hadn't understood why her parents had separated in the first place, and if Marilyn had her way, she'd never understand. No matter how much she asked about it, Marilyn never told her about the divorce or about why she hated her father, Christine's grandfather, Bartholomew Moss. It wasn't any of the girl's business. Over time, she'd stopped asking. She had come to accept it and even came to like Josh. It was impossible not to like Josh. Yet for Marilyn, it was impossible to love him. She could be his faithful wife, and she could put up with her father. She would do her best to take care of Christine. Marilyn would wake up every morning like nothing was wrong. All she asked was to have that night shower, that time of tears when she needed, and year after year, anniversary after anniversary, she always did. Marilyn tried to keep the memories back, but from the back of her mind, his voice echoed, "Lynn, Lynn," a nickname that hadn't been used in years. Eventually, she shut the shower off, dried herself, and got back in bed. The memories were still there, but the tears had dried up. The anniversary had come and gone, but the face was still in her mind. "Lynn, Lynn, I love you, Lynn." This is so clearly a child's idea of what depression is, you know? I could never love again. My heart was broken so clearly I'm just dead inside, a walking husk. Like, God, oh. Oh, jeez. Oh, God, I need a drink after this. Another day of school and deliveries went by with many problems and many hitches. Christine did horribly in her science period. You know, the science period that we all had in college? But she'd never been good at science anyway. 2 May rules, too little time. 2 May rules. I think that's supposed to be many. But anyway, the flat tire during her delivery route had been the icing on the cake. Somebody loves screwing with me, the girl frowned. Still, she felt very good inside. She could act as mean and irritable as she wanted, but a light-hearted feeling danced through her stomach. Christine had had dreams of Dante, shirtless, holding her against his chest. She was very glad she hadn't moaned aloud. A child's idea of intimacy. If Dante ever caught her in the act of having a naughty dream about him, she'd never live it down. Remember, the naughty dream is that they're just hugging. They're just holding each other. Sorry, I just... When she had awoken, two cold pieces of pizza had awaited her for breakfast. Not the best, but at least they were free. But to make up for the unhealthy food, Christine had a salad for lunch. Of course, she lost more money when she was late to 3 deliveries thanks to the flat tire. This job is just stealing money from her. She was losing more money on the job than she was gaining. This is not how a job works. When she got home, Christine worked on some homework, reviewed her novel a little, and was greatly surprised by the lack of Dante calling for pizza. It was strange not hearing from the man. He'd become a routine in 2 days. Remember, this is 2 days. 2 days have passed in this story. Collapsing on the sofa, Christine began thinking. She didn't think of anything in particular, just thought. That was until the phone rang. Dante, I bet. The girl sat up and reached for the phone. Hello? Christine. Surprised by the frightened voice on the phone, the woman stood. Who's this? Christy, it's your grandfather. Suddenly, the deep baritone was familiar. Grampy? What's wrong? She began to pace, feeling something was horribly wrong. We need to speak in private. You must come to my residence as soon as possible. Confused about the sudden urgency, Christine thought about the weekend. I think Monday's a holiday. Tomorrow, Christine. You must be at the mansion tomorrow. Tomorrow? More than shocked. True fear coursed through her veins. What's going on, Grandpa? It was no use. The man had hung up. That was very strange and extremely unlike him. Unnerved, Christine set the phone down and sat on the sofa, wide-eyed. Unable to think of anything to do, she called the pizza place and told them she would be unable to work the next day. And then she went to bed and took an hour to fall into a fitful sleep. Well, that's where we're gonna cut off for the day. That's, this is so much, and it's bringing memories to mind of remembering what I was planning in this story and what I was trying to do. It's so weird. Yes, this is supposed to be Dante, but one, clearly, I clearly, I don't know anything. I don't know how college works. I don't know how jobs work. I don't know what, like, I call everything generic terms. Go to downtown for the delivery. Play a video game. Like, God, there's so much wrong. I don't know romance. I don't know how to write anything romantic, because clearly Dante is not that in this. He does not, I'm trying to write him as, like, smooth, I guess, and he just comes across as awkward. Like, really, is creepy. It's so creepy. And I'm sure it'll just, I don't know, maybe it'll get better, because I wrote this over the period of, like, 3 years. So my writing may increase in quality as we go on. But, I'm sorry you just came in at the end. We'll be back with more of this next week. Probably Friday, 1 p.m. Oh, God, there's so many. I think my favorite bit was just the naughty dream that was just them hugging each other. God, there's so much in here that's just such quality. Like, you could clearly tell, like, baby's first attempt at romance, I knew nothing. Yes, do bring your neck towel. It will be necessary, I'm sure. Oh, man. Am I streaming later? Yes. I'll be streaming a game of some sort. If I have time to fix Fatal Frame, it'll be Fatal Frame. If not, it'll be something else. Resident Evil, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, I'll be back at hopefully 7. We will see. Oh, God. And we'll be back with this next week. Thank you guys for the support. And thank you for those who joined the channel. Odd Molly, thank you. Handsome Wretch, thank you for the donations. It does help to keep the channel running and to support my video game buying and everything. And yeah, we'll be back with a stream later. How many of these fics did you write? I think this story has 12 or 13 chapters. And then as it fics in general, probably hundreds is probably not an underestimation. We have miles to go before we sleep as far as finishing. This isn't even the oldest story I have. The oldest story I have is probably Kingdom Hearts, and it will be atrocious. And it has 36 chapters, and there's 3 parts to it, and it's still on the internet. Don't find it. Save it for this. Yeah, we have so much more to read. I mean, we could take a second and talk about that. I picked this because I figured Devil May Cry kind of relates to Resident Evil, sort of fits the universe there for fic reading. But as far as stuff I've written, hundreds upon hundreds of chapters for Kingdom Hearts. It was my biggest fandom growing up. I wrote 12 one-shot. I wrote romance. Actually, my first attempt at romance was definitely Kingdom Hearts, but it wasn't a self-insert. Like, I was really actually trying to write a romance story. This was definitely me just being horny for Dante. Then I wrote a lot for Final Fantasy VII. I wrote a Final Fantasy VII Silent Hill crossover, which honestly, there's probably only one of those in the universe, and you could probably find me with that. Don't find me. Don't find me. This story is also on the internet somewhere. Points to whoever finds it. Did I write Soriku? A lot of my gay stuff came in college. It took high school for me to figure out my sexuality and my confidence to start writing that stuff. This era is a lot of straight stuff. A lot of it. What else did I write? I actually have, let me pull up my list. I have a lot of original fiction too, some of which is old and cringy, which we could read eventually. But as far as fanfic goes, let's take a look at my folders. I have them all arranged into folders. I have a lot of the original notebooks too, because I'm an obsessive keeper of everything. And I have a Google Drive that has about 500 gigs stored in it right now. Here we go. Fanfictions. We got Avengers. We got Bleach. Jesus Christ. DC Comics. Devil May Cry folder. Let's see, Dishonored, Dragon Age, Final Fantasy Dissidia, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy XII, Harry Potter, Inuyasha, Kingdom Hearts, The Legend of Zelda, Lord of the Rings, Mass Effect, Miscellaneous, which really is just 2 Supernatural fanfics, but I didn't want to make a Supernatural folder because I don't plan to ever write for that again. Naruto, Overwatch, Pokemon, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Star Trek, Transformers, The Witcher, and Zelda. Zelda again? I have 2 Zeldas? What's in the different... Okay, that's that. And then what's in the other Zelda? Okay, the same thing. I just accidentally have 2 Zelda folders. Whoops. Yeah. Am I gonna read you that one fanfic? What's the one fanfic? What's the one fanfic? I'm curious now. Most of what I wrote is definitely Kingdom Hearts. Everything else, I think I wrote a lot for Final Fantasy VII. And I have modern stories I actually really enjoy. I don't know if y'all want to hear things that are good, because it's fun to listen to things that are bad. Yes, I do have, I think, like 2. Oh no, I have more. Oh geez. Oh god, I forgot about that. Oh no, we have an old bad Transformers fic. And it's a self-insert. I wrote a self-insert Optimus Prime fanfic. Listen. But listen, though. It was my other self-insert fanfic. I blocked it from my mind. I forgot about it. But yeah, I wrote a self-insert me/Optimus. Well, I actually kind of liked the premise of this one, where, it was set in the Transformers Prime universe, and the main female character was a trucker. So, like, and there was some sort of premise where she had to drive Optimus Prime, but then she figured out he was a robot, and then the Decepticons kidnapped her, so he had to save her. And then there wasn't really any actual romance in the story. It was really just friendship. But you don't, like, write and say, hey, guys, read my friendship fic. So it was tagged as being / like, there was no romantic aspect, I don't think. Or I never at least got there. My self-insert was a human, not a robot. Oh, man. Yeah, that, we'll have to read that at some point. Let's see what else horrible I have. I have, the Mass Effect stuff's decent stuff from pretty recently. That I wouldn't consider that embarrassing. Let's list the embarrassing shit first. We have my very old Final Fantasy VII and Silent Hill crossover, which was my first attempt at horror fiction. I genuinely don't remember a lot of it, and I don't remember if it was actually scary, but it basically took the characters from Final Fantasy VII and set them in Silent Hill's scenario. Because, I mean, Final Fantasy VII has this stuff that happens in the town of Nibelheim, where the whole town burns and a lot of bad stuff happens. So I kind of just meshed the ideas of the two universes, and I made Sephiroth Alessa. So basically, it's the story of Silent Hill, but Sephiroth was Alessa, and Cloud was Harry trying to find his friends Zack and Aerith, who had died, but didn't die. Like, it was a mesh of Silent Hill 1 and 2. There was so much going on there. We have my Kuja/Kefka fanfic. I considered reading that today, and I read a little, and I was too horrified by it, because it's written in the first person. Each section is either from Kuja's point of view or Kefka's point of view, and it would mean I would have to voice those two. Gods above. Okay, so that's 3 fic right there. What did I write? Oh god, my first gay fanfiction was the Harry Potter, and it was the Yule Ball, and the idea was the whole scene in the 4th book where Ron and Harry can't find a date. It always felt stupid to me at that time in my life. I knew I was gay, and I was like, hey, Harry and Ron could just go together. And so the whole fic was the premise of, what if Harry and Ron took each other to the Yule Ball as a date? But it was my first gay fanfic, and it was definitely questionable. What is this? Okay, that's actually not that bad. That's not something embarrassing or old. Oh god, I have really old oh god, I wrote a crossover between Final Fantasy XIII and Bleach, where Hitsugaya Toshiro met Snow from Final Fantasy XIII. Oh god. Oh man, that's one. And I also wrote a really old... I don't even know what this is. It's some sort of unfinished OC fic, where I inserted a original character into Bleach, and I'm not sure. It's 20 pages of something. I don't even think it actually got to the Bleach characters. It was a lot of world building for a original character. I'll have to look at what this is. I don't even know what that is. I vaguely remember writing it. A lot of Kingdom Hearts fic. I can't even... Basically, after Kingdom Hearts 2, I wrote my own sequel to Kingdom Hearts 2, because we were all waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3, and it wasn't coming, so I wrote my own sequel. And it became a series. It was at least 36 chapters and 3 different series that each had about 30 chapters, so that was something. Oh god, so much we will have to read at some point. So we at least have 3 or 4 stories of embarrassment to read before I run out of really old shit. But we'll finish this one first before we go on to anything else. Thanks again, guys. I will be back with some gaming later today. Until then, enjoy yourselves. Have a good one. I'm gonna go throw myself into a dumpster. Bye.